Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky joined the French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris for the summit, which many leaders attended virtually rather than in person. President Macron said 26 countries signed up to contribute troops to guarantee Ukraine's security if and when a ceasefire with Russia is agreed. The French leader said that the reassurance force, as he called it, could be on the ground, in the sea or in the air. Well, let's talk about some of what was discussed today. I'm joined now by Kristine Berzina. She's Senior Fellow for US Defence and Transatlantic Security at the German Marshall Fund. Thank you for being with us. Those countries that President Macron mentioned were prepared to provide troops to Ukraine. The US not on that list. Is that crucial that they provide those troops in whatever format it may be for that security force to be truly reassuring, as President Macron called it?
It's incredibly important for the U.S. to take part in the security guarantees in some form. About a month ago, we would not have been talking about U.S. participation at all until the Alaska summit between Putin and Trump. This really was a European and friend initiative, but not something that the U.S. was even engaging with a kind of role. Right now, we have a question of the U.S. participation, and there have been various reports about what that could be. Participation from the sky, meaning helping with intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance, and potentially also with creating a no-fly zone could be part of this deal, but we don't have a clear sense after today's meeting about exactly what those parameters are. We have seen this increase of will, though, from the coalition of the willing to make more significant contributions because the U.S. is engaged. If this is simply a non-U.S. activity, it feels risky to many participants not to have the major NATO power involved. If the U.S. is in, however it is in, it's a much more viable force.
Of course, in a way, discussion of security after a ceasefire is premature when we don't seem to be anywhere near a ceasefire at this point in time. President Trump has threatened many times secondary sanctions on countries doing business with Russia, so far only imposing a tariff on India. What does he need to do there? He's made these threats and has yet to follow through on them.
President Trump has given Putin a tremendous amount of time and many second chances in order to start showing different behavior in Ukraine. And what instead we have seen in Ukraine is an increase of land grabs along the front and terror from the air. Now, in today's conversation, it seems that Trump is again bringing up the question of sanctions on oil and gas, on Russian oil and gas, and doing so in coordination with the Europeans. This has appeared as a suggestion and been taken off the table on and off this entire year. Again, we're in a moment in which putting more pressure on Putin seems to be on the table. But again, any clear signs of this would go through, I think, would be premature. So far, it has been rhetoric. But this is the question of how do the Europeans and the Americans get Putin to the table? Does Putin feel under pressure? Having a force that is ready in some ways to catch Ukraine when the war ends is a good step forward. It brings that future slightly more into view. But how to get Putin to the table is what this other basket of activities needs to be about. What are the pressure tactics? Because thus far, Trump has been nice to Putin, and it still hasn't made any difference. What can be done differently now?
Okay, well, we'll wait to see what happens there. Kristine Berzina, Senior Fellow for US Defence and Transatlantic Security at the German Marshall Fund. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.